Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. This week we heard that the Australian Bureau of Statistics has chosen 60,000 homes to take part in a test census to make sure the real event next year runs without incident. For the first time, it will include questions about sexual orientation and gender for people over 16. The census is a nationwide count of household information. It's conducted every 5 years. It provides a snapshot of Australia's population. And to help me delve into why we do it, what to expect from it, I welcome to the show Hara Priya Kannan, Chief Data Scientist for the Demographic Group. Harry, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Hello, Sean.
Why is the census so important?
So the census is kind of a big deal, especially here, and it matters more than most people realize. Census data decides where our schools, hospitals, aged care homes, transport services go. It affects how much funding your local areas gets and whether your suburb gets a new childcare center or a community park. All these kinds of big decisions are based on census data. So even if you only think about the census once every 5 years, it's quietly shaping the world around us.
Okay, well, there you go. I've learned something there already. I just didn't realise quite that is a massive impact that the census has. Is it timely enough, I suppose, is the question.
It is timely enough, and that's what's really special about Australia's census. Unlike many countries that only run their census every 10 years, like the US does it once every 10 years, we do ours every 5, which means we get fresher data and can respond more quickly to social and economic changes. And our census is pretty inclusive. It doesn't just count our citizens and our permanent residents, but it also counts tourists, international students, whether you're a temporary visa holder. Our census counts everyone, and that gives us a real insight into how things are in Australia.
Okay, is it the Australian census, is that typical of other censuses around the world, or do we tend to gather more information? How's that all work?
We do get a lot more information compared to other censuses in the world. The US only has 12 questions, but our census, it has about 63 questions. And the test run that we are doing right now, it is actually a change that was looked into from the previous census. So what happens in between our censuses is that a committee sits down, they really go through our data. They try to understand what can we add that's more current, more relevant. For example, they're adding a new category as a response to one of our questions, which is tell us about how you travel to work. And they are going to add travel by e-bike as one of the options.
Oh, wow.
Now, I have never seen, as a data scientist, this being done in any other country other than Australia.
What about the issue? I mean, something that has had a bit of publicity is the question on sexual orientation and gender. It was something that was discussed last year, but if I'm right, the government didn't particularly want to push the issue ahead of the election. Why is it important that we get that sort of information?
I think that helps us understand a lot about these communities that are less talked about. So our census not only gives us the count of people and the age, but it also talks about the educational backgrounds, what sort of family setups they are in, where they're living, how they're doing economically. And this gives us an insight into how to service these cohorts better.
Broadly, I mean, we've got to go to a break in a moment, and we might talk about specific things like birth rates and international students and housing and that after the break. But just broadly, before we go to the break, how is Australia changing? Or is that too broad a question to actually ask?
That is too broad a question to ask, but I think Australia is one of the leading examples worldwide on how you can harness the data and build smarter environments. And I don't see this happening anywhere else in the world. And the other thing about the Australian census is, while most data in other countries are not publicly easily accessible. Now, if you want to know about your suburb, For example, you can just go on the ABS website, and there is a tool called Quick Stats. You type in your suburb, and it will give you all the basic information
Oh, wow.
about how your suburb is doing, the income profiles, what sort of occupations are there, including religious affiliation. It's not just the big companies that can benefit out of this. I might plan to start a new ice cream joint in my suburb, and this data can be useful for me.
Fantastic. Stay with me, Hari. We'll be back in a moment. I'm speaking to the demographic group's Hara Priya Kannan. I want to get to some specific challenges. International students migration, a constant debate in Australia. Good or bad?
It's good, and it's not my personal opinion. Data says
Yeah.
it.
That's what I want to know. What's the data say?
So when you look at our migration, I'm going to break this down to you. Or I might even ask you a question here.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of our migration do you think is permanent in nature?
I'd say we'd have a lot more tourists, international students, many, many more than permanent in nature, I would guess.
Yeah, so the permanent is only 11%. So when we say we are taking 400,000 people or 250,000 people, we are not bringing them all here forever. So what are all these temporary tourists and migrants actually contributing to us as a nation? International education is our top 4 service export. It's a billion-dollar industry. And international education also directly affects tourism. Without international education, the Australian tourism industry would be 1/3 of what it is today.
Wow.
Plus, we have temporary workers who help us plug our skills shortage. Our unemployment rate is at an all-time low. So we're not essentially getting migrants to take up the jobs of all locals, but we are rather getting migrants to fill the gaps in our workforce. So it's a completely win situation for Australia, and this is going to be the case in every other first world top income countries as well. And that's because globally we are aging, and most developed nations are also aging very rapidly, which means we are going to be having fewer and fewer workers. So every country will now get on the race to get migrants so they can sustain their population growth.
Okay, so this brings us on to structural ageing and birth rates. What is the Australian birth rate trending?
So our current birth rate is at 1.8, and it's trending downwards. It has been trending downwards for the past 3-4 decades. This is something that needs a lot of structural change if it has to go up. So the replacement level is 2.2, and we are well below that. So we will actually see in the late 2040s that our natural increase starts going into the negatives, and migration is the only component that will help Australia's population growth.
Okay. The housing sector, another big political issue. It was at the last election. The government's National Housing Accord wants to build 240,000 homes a year. We're nowhere near that. Do demographics tell us anything about what we need to do with housing?
So the whole issue about housing is, see, we have a lot of space. That's the reality. When you compare most Australian cities to other cities like London or San Francisco, you compare anywhere, our population density is much, much lower than that. And we also have a land area that's much bigger. You can take New York, for example. It has around 800 people approximately per square kilometer. And the entire city is only 1,000 square kilometers in size.
Yeah.
If you take Melbourne, it's 12,000 square kilometers, and our population density is about 450. So we can see that we don't have a spacing issue. What we have is a policy issue. Our population growth and our migration policy is not really communicating with our housing policy is the issue here. And we also need to build more density housing, especially in areas that's having a turnover of this temporary population. Like if you look at our job hubs and university corridors, these places require more short-term rental, higher density housing compared to what we are actually building.
Harry, tell me, do you get excited as a demographer when there's a new census coming up?
I definitely get very excited.
It's kind of Christmas, once every 5 years.
Yes. Firstly, it's my bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, when the last census came out, there were new questions around long-term health conditions and mental health and everything. And there's always new data to explore. So it's not the same thing that's happening every 5 years. So there are some trends that don't really change a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are these new trends that open up new avenues for research and debate, and that's really exciting.
Fantastic. Harry, thank you very much for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you.
That was Hara Priya Kannan, Chief Data Scientist for the Demographics Group. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, business news you can use. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.